Many people are just one emergency away from complete financial meltdown. And if you find yourself looking at the calendar page from the 15th of the month and your life literally has no meaning again until the next payday, then they say you are living from paycheck to paycheck, which is not true, because you are actually not living, you rather are dying from paycheck to paycheck, because it is difficult and it is tough. You don't have to live that way. So in this video, I am going to talk about what it means to live from paycheck to paycheck, to look at the causes of this particular bondage and what you can do, whatever tactics that you can adopt to ensure that you break away from the cycle of living from paycheck to paycheck or dying from paycheck to paycheck. My name is Ayo Jimmy. Welcome to my channel. Please help me grow the channel by subscribing and click that button, that particular bell, to ensure that every time I create a content like this, you'll get notified by YouTube. All right, let's do this. So what exactly does it mean to live from paycheck to paycheck? Ignore what I said about dying from paycheck to paycheck. All right, what does it mean? It means that your income is equal to your basic expenses, and that is serious. It means you have nothing left to do any other thing apart from collect the money and spend it on either food or what have you. So if your income is actually equal to your expenses, your basic expenses in particular, you are living from paycheck to paycheck. And why did I say you are really dying from paycheck to paycheck if this describes your situation? And I'll tell you three reasons. Three grave consequences of having this kind of financial status in your life at this point in time. Number one, you are vulnerable to financial shocks. Yes, anything can happen, people get sacked, life happens. I know we can say that no evil shall befall us. You can tap your chest and say, no, but things happen, life happens. When life happens and you have nothing set aside for saving because you are living from paycheck to paycheck, then you are on a dangerous list, or you are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. So number one, you have this financial vulnerability. You are vulnerable to any emergency here and there. If they sack you today, how do you cope? If your boss says, okay, don't come to work tomorrow, you really can't feed yourself, how do you take care of your expenses and so on and so forth? That is one consequence of living from paycheck to paycheck. Number two, when you are living from paycheck to paycheck, you have a life of stress, chronic stress. The idea of thinking about what to eat, how to keep the family going until the next payday is enough to, raise your BP and give you some other medical conditions that you are not really praying for, and which is not good for you. So you are having chronic stress in your system. And number three, you have limited opportunity for growth. People say that the rich will always get richer and the poor will most likely get poorer. It is because when you are living from paycheck to paycheck, it means you have nothing left to pursue growth. You really have nothing left to further your education. You have nothing left to take opportunities. When they say there's a particular business venture here that you can tap into, there is nothing in your hand to do that, because there is, at the end of the month, you are on a zero-sum game. And those are three consequences of living from paycheck to paycheck. The goal is to ensure that you don't find yourself in this situation, and if you are there, the goal is to pull you out of it. And how do you do all this? I will explain in the next segment. I've seen a lot of videos when people try to provide solutions to the cycle of living from paycheck to paycheck without looking at the root cause. And I keep asking, is it proper for a medical doctor to make prescriptions without diagnosis? I don't think that is the way it goes. So before I talk to you about what to do or the solutions to living from paycheck to paycheck, let's talk about the causes. There are two broad categories of causes, for living from paycheck to paycheck. Let's look at the first one. Are you spending recklessly? Or if you're doing that, what do you have to do so you can break that cycle of living from paycheck to paycheck? The first thing you do is you have to track your expenses. If you don't track it, you really can't measure it. Back then in my university days, I had a friend of mine who would always carry some kind of pocket jotter about. And what was he doing? If he spent any amount of money, he will record it there. If he bought sachet water, he's going to write it down there. If he bought any snack, he's going to write it there. And I was like, why are you doing this? He told me, if you don't track it, you don't get to measure it. Now, fast forward 10 years after, I must admit, he is way better off than many of us that were not tracking our own expenses. So if you want to know whether you are really overspending, whether you are spending recklessly, you have to track your expenses. Get some kind of accountability jotter for yourself to see how much you are spending. That way, you are able to separate your needs from your wants. You'll be shocked that you are spending on things that you are not really meant to spend on, or the percentage of money that you are spending on some things is probably higher than you can afford at this point in time. So if you find yourself spending more than you really should be spending, then you know that you have to cut down on it. So that's the first thing you have to do. Okay, track your expenses and see that you are actually spending on what needs to be bought, not on what you just want to buy. Number 2, embrace automated savings. There is a concept in behavioral economics that says that people are able to save more when it is automated and they're not thinking about it. It's out of sight. And it's easier these days. There are apps that can, function such that when any amount of money enters your account like this, a particular percentage is taken off the account and put into a particular savings account somewhere. That is possible these days. We have different apps that you can, latch onto. So how do you do this? You have to set up what is called opportunity fund. People call it emergency fund. I choose to call it opportunity fund because it is not just for emergencies. It could be to pursue opportunities. If you cannot use an app, go to your bank and give them an instruction that when any amount of money, especially when my salary hits my account, please let this percentage be taken off it and dumped into my opportunity account. That way, you are able to save without being conscious. You are not thinking about it, because if you have to think about it, you will not save, most likely. Number 3, there is this concept of the invisible money trick. And how does this work? When you make any cash purchase anywhere, the change that you have on it, the remaining money on it, put it somewhere without counting it. After a while, it accumulates. The same way, if you make any debit card purchase, round it up to the nearest whole number. So the difference, put it somewhere in that opportunity account without even thinking about it. Because it helps you. You will find out that at the end of 12 months or thereabout, you will be so shocked what you would have accumulated. Let's not forget that you are coming from a position where your income was equal to your expenses. Now you are trying to cut down on your expenses and even show up savings, and that is where this invisible money trick comes in. Then number 4, the 1 day 1 item purge challenge. If you look at your house, there are things that you have that you've not used for the last maybe 5 years, 10 years. I know people who have pairs of shoes that they have not worn in the last 3 years. Focus it. What are they doing? There is that electronic that is sitting on your shelf there only as a reminder of some good old days. Now, set up yourself to do one challenge. For the next 30 days, pick one item that you are not using again and discard it by selling it for cheaper to someone who needs it. And there are so many declutter platforms today in Nigeria and anywhere in the world. So if you sell all these items that are not needed again, one, you are able to declutter your space. At the same time, you are able to make some more money, and every sale from those items should go into your opportunity account. Don't forget, you are not meant to spend the money, you are meant to save the money. So those are 4 things you can do if you really are spending recklessly. But what happens if you are not making enough? Because to be sincere, I know that people will say that, okay, no matter how much you are making, you can always save something. Well, while I won't argue like that, it's a bit tougher for some people, because some are in this kind of situation that everything they are making goes into basic needs. Every income that they are earning goes into buying food. To even buy food alone is all they are doing with their money, and you really can't expect someone that is not earning enough to even cover his basic expenses like feeding to have some savings. So if your problem is that you are not making enough, then it is time for you to think of other side businesses. And in case you're looking for what to do, I can tell you that your phone is enough to start. It may not make you enough in the end, but then you can always start from your phone. And I did a video to that effect, which you will see at the end of this video. Click it and watch it. Things you can do with your phone to earn side income, or we'll say side hustles that you can embark on using your phone only. We have dealt with the 2 scenarios, whether you were spending recklessly or you were not making enough. Now, let us now assume, hypothetically, that you've gotten to a point whereby you are no longer spending recklessly, meaning you have some savings that you are putting in your opportunity account, and at the same time, you have been able to set up some kind of side business or side hustles that are now fetching you some amount of money. Now, what do you do with the money? Don't forget, the goal is to make sure that you're not living from paycheck to paycheck. The goal is to ensure that you are financially free. So what do? Continue saving the money in your opportunity account, and after a while, okay, what do? At every point in time, make sure that you have 50% of that amount of money in the opportunity account and take out the remaining 50%. So when you now have the remaining 50%, take 20% of the 50% you took out to invest in education, because you will earn more when you can add more value, and you can only add more value to people if you add more value to yourself. So invest in education. There are so many online platforms that can teach you a lot of new skills that are valuable in today's world. Learn that with that 20%, and the remaining 30%, then you have to look for investment vehicles to invest in. There are so many things you can invest in, but we'll need another video for that. If you want me to do a video on investment opportunities that you as a 9-to-5 worker can go into, then drop comments for me in the comment section. And that's the show today. Thank you for watching. Please help me grow the channel by subscribing and hitting that bell button so that you can get notified every time I come up with a new content. I'll see you next content. Bye-bye.